Hey guys, Spumdonor here. AI cartooning. I have a couple of things to say about it because I was recently invited onto the PODAWFUL show to discuss it, but unfortunately I wasn't available. Jesse, the host, had a great conversation with Sven Stoffels and FACELESS, who are both great artists. I've put the link to that episode in the description of this video, and I highly recommend you check it out. This video is really just my addendum to that one, since I wasn't able to be there, but I still wanted to share a couple thoughts. One majorly important point those guys covered extensively was that a lot of the artists online who are complaining the loudest about AI art, they tend to either be full-time fan artists or porn artists. And that's because those are the two types of artists whose ability to make money with their art is, in fact, actually threatened by AI. With porn, it's not so hard to understand why that is, especially with the kind of bizarre fetish niche subcultures of porn that cartoon obsessives get into. Infamously, there's a guy who has this very specific fetish for, I need to take a deep breath for this one, affluent women buying mass quantities of Wonder Bread and having large forests cut down to support their consumerism. This guy became infamous because he actually would spend a ton of money commissioning various artists to depict this. And I think more than a year ago, I remember seeing this guy on Twitter when AI art was just starting to get really good, making a post to the effect of, well, looks like I don't need to spend money on commissions anymore. And he was right, and that's going to apply to every perversion you can think of, basically, including the less specific ones, but AI can do the specific and the bizarre ones too. So there's that, and then as far as fan art, that's a bit more complex because, as they point out on the PodAwful episode, there's a lot of online artists who are basically in the bootleg merchandise business. They've been the modern online equivalent of guys who, back in the 90s, were selling bootleg Bart Simpson t-shirts where he's, like, in the Gulf War. Or the guys who made those Calvin and Hobbes decals where he's pissing on the Ford logo. Because if you have a funny idea like that now, and you want to make it, but you can't even draw a straight line, you'll be able to do it with AI. So, of course, it's ironic for guys who specialize in that kind of stuff to talk about how AI can't compare to human creativity when they're predominantly drawing other people's characters and copyrighted IP, which is all that AI is doing too. There's another aspect to this, though, which is that a day or so after I listened to that PodAwful episode, I happened to see on my Twitter timeline this post someone made of Popeye and Goku with their art styles swapped. It was Popeye in the style of Akira Toriyama and Goku in the style of a Fleischer cartoon. And looking at that, something just clicked for me that hadn't before, which is that just like using famous characters for memes, there's certain kinds of fan art that now feel like they could just be automated by AI. Taking one character and generating a new version of it in another established art style is very much the type of thing that people play around with in AI now. That's the whole reason there was a trend last month of people wanting to see everything filtered into Studio Ghibli style. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of fan art in of itself, by the way. Some artists obviously have a lot of fun with it, but I can't help noticing that, X in the style of Y, that's very much part of the AI aesthetic. That's something people like using it for. So it seems like there's less reason for real artists to be spending their time and effort on that now. And thinking more about the nature of fan art itself and its new relationship with AI cartooning, AI cartooning basically exists because for more than a decade now, the predominant form of online cartooning has been fan art. And there's a practical reason for that as far as cartoonists are concerned, and Tumblr plays a big role in it. We haven't totally reckoned with all the effects of Tumblr on cartooning, but this is one of them. Even if you're not looking to sell bootleg merchandise, if you're just a cartoonist who's posting their work online and trying to build a following, Of course, it makes sense to draw popular characters and post those. You want likes, you want shares, you want followers, and if you're only posting original art, original characters, original comics, original animations, that's kind of scary. You don't know if people are going to respond. It's discouraging to put yourself out there and be met with indifference. It's a bit like I talked about in my review of The Day the Earth Blew Up. The problem with fandom culture is that it's about socializing over what's already popular rather than discovering anything new. And that, in a nutshell, is why there's so much fan art online, and that's why the AI algorithms have so much data to copy and to draw from. Again, I'm not against fan art in of itself, but the really good fan art comes from when an artist or cartoonist has gotten good at what they do, and they can then apply their own style to someone else's characters and infuse them with their own personality. What you tend to find more of, though, is artists who have just gotten really good at emulating their influences. And I'm sure in a lot of cases that's because those artists have professional aspirations. They want to get really good at drawing Disney characters or superheroes because that's what they want to do for a living. But when I see fan art on my timeline that just looks like the artist was trying to draw it perfectly on model the way it would look in official art, I just find that really boring. If anything, I think it's actually kind of frustrating when you find artists online who you can tell they've really put in the work, the thousands of hours to get really professional or near professional drawing skills on a technical level, and they just don't have any ideas of their own, either in terms of coming up with their own characters and stories, or even just in terms of visual interpretation. I respect them a lot for the skills they've achieved, but they're just not interesting to me as a viewer or a reader. The artists who I follow online are almost entirely guys and girls who are doing their own thing, and I'm always excited to see them post new stuff because I know it's going to be original and unique coming from them. It'll be something I've never seen before. And yeah, obviously, just because something is original doesn't automatically mean it's going to be good, but if the artist is at least trying to do something new and creative, that's always going to be more interesting than the most professional-looking fan art of corporate IP. And if they do make some occasional fan art, I know it's going to be special because they're going to have their own take on it that couldn't have come from an algorithm. Also, let's be honest, if you've acquired professional-level technical skills and you can draw established characters really well and on model in different styles, the only way you're going to make money as a fan artist, besides selling bootleg merch, is drawing porn, and that's why there's also more cartoon porn now than ever. But that's a big topic for another day. If you think I'm totally off base about any of this stuff, let me know in the comments, but one last AI-related thought I want to share is Sven Stoffels was talking a bit about his appreciation of David Lynch on that PODAWFUL episode, and he was using him as an example of a unique artist whose work AI couldn't replicate just by mixing and matching things that already exist, the way that all AI art is created. And Jesse was arguing the other side, saying that originality is usually just two or more old things put together. And there is some truth to that in the old saying that there's nothing new under the sun, but David Lynch is actually a great example of an artist whose creativity AI couldn't duplicate, and that's not because of his influences. David Lynch had this infamous reputation of never explaining his work, but that's more of a meme than reality because he actually did a lot of interviews over his lifetime about his influences and where his ideas came from. My point is, a lot of those influences and ideas weren't just paintings or films that he'd seen or books that he'd read or anything that could be quantified as data points. His biggest inspiration was life itself. It was growing up in Missoula, Montana, and being an Eagle Scout when he was a kid. It was moving to the Rust Belt of Philadelphia as a young man. It was being a young father when he wasn't ready. What you see in stuff like Eraserhead or Twin Peaks is him expressing those feelings and those memories. And there's specific stuff in his movies that was taken straight from personal experience. Like when he was a kid, he once saw a totally naked woman wandering through his neighborhood in some kind of disoriented state, and it horrified him. And years later, that image found its way into Blue Velvet, So, bottom line, AI doesn't have a life. You have a life. And if you're creative and you want to express something, you can draw upon your whole human experience when you're being creative. Literally, no one has ever had the life you've had. A work of art is a unique product of its time because your life is a totally unique moment in time. That's the real essence of creativity. That's the answer to the question of why AI can't replicate creativity, because the feelings and emotions you've had during the entirety of your life are not reducible to a set of data. You have a perspective which informs your art that could only belong to you based on everything that's ever happened to you, and it can't be recreated. Like, even if it were somehow possible to have a complete record of everything David Lynch said or did every single day of his life, and you had a complete list of all the artistic influences he ever had too, all that information still wouldn't tell you what he was feeling and thinking. And that's what he put into his work that nobody else could, and no algorithm could either. The totality of his existence. And the same goes for every artist who's ever made anything worthwhile. If you get good on a technical level and you get good at expressing yourself, then your art becomes an extension of yourself. It becomes transcendent. This is why I love to see cartoonists who are really trying to put their souls into their work, at least as much as they're trying to improve their drawing skills. To do that, instead of just trying to make stuff that looks like what everybody else is making, that takes courage as an artist, and it's thrilling to be an audience to that. Because even when an artist's technical skills are amateurish, they can still make compelling art if they honestly put their own humanity into what they're doing and really try to connect with you through what they're doing. And that doesn't even have to be some deep, profound thing. That could just be an expression of someone's particular sense of humor. But whether it's funny or sad or scary or whatever, if a work of art can move you in any way, that's more impressive than being able to draw a highly detailed, anatomically perfect Spider-Man, which AI is getting better at every day, by the way. Anyways, lots of great stuff coming up on this channel, so subscribe and thanks for listening.